Welcome everybody. So I am back and bringing you guys a brand new movie review. This will be for The Disaster Artist. So if you see an image of The Disaster Artist behind me, that is why. This movie is one of my favorites, and when I saw this in the theater, I was laughing my ass off. I remember laughing at pretty much all the jokes and stuff, especially with everybody else in the room, which this movie is based off the movie The Room, which is an infamous movie for being, really, really bad, but ended up being sort of a comedy, and it's still outselling pretty much most modern movies to this day and made Tommy Wiseau a household name, especially being the director of that movie. This stars James Franco as Tommy Wiseau, Dave Franco as Greg Sestero, which Greg Sestero is actually a working actor, and he's always working with Tommy Wiseau in his other future projects, most notably Best Friends and Big Shark being the recent ones that he's worked with him on. This movie pretty much deals with the life and the process of making a movie, so if you're interested in filmmaking by any means, you should definitely check out this movie. And you also get to see Seth Rogen in this movie. He pretty much is teaming up with Dave and James Franco. He plays the director of this movie, The Room, and there's a lot of turmoil and stuff that happens on set, and we will definitely be discussing some of that in this review. Now, this movie starts off, you see that Greg Sestero is living sort of an average life. He is taking up acting classes. He's not living the life that he kind of wants to live. And this movie does have a little bit of a hero's journey. He meets Tommy Wiseau at sort of an acting class, and he's doing improv and stuff like that. And, Tommy Wiseau, being the weirdo that he is, gets up on stage and pretty much dismays everybody with the fact that he's being extremely strange, especially with some of the female actresses that are working with him on this sort of improv session. And he meets Greg Sestero after these classes, and Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau sort of hit it off, sort of have a friendship, watching movies and stuff like that after class and kind of working with each other acting. Greg Sestero saying that, he wanted to kind of learn from Tommy Wiseau and kind of learn to be a better actor from him. And Tommy Wiseau at first not really wanting to teach Greg Sestero, but then eventually kind of bringing him under his wing. You eventually find out that he is supposedly from New Orleans, even though nobody really knows exactly where Tommy Wiseau is from. Tommy Wiseau is this eccentric sort of actor who has a past that nobody really knows about, and he claims that he's from a different, state, but everybody else thinks that he's from a different country because of his accent and stuff like that. He has a bunch of money in the bank account, which nobody knows where he got that money from, that he uses to eventually buy sort of the equipment and the film gear that is needed to kind of film this movie. And so one day he kind of gets the idea that he's going to write his own screenplay, especially when he goes to Hollywood and realizes that nobody in Hollywood really wants to hire Tommy Wiseau or Greg Sestero. They're kind of at a loss because, they want to be sort of that A caliber range, but they can't really get there because nobody's going to let them in, especially not with Tommy Wiseau being with Greg Sestero. And one of the guys from one of the films that he did recently actually says the same thing and tells it to Greg Sestero that, Hollywood's female organ kind of dries up when, he's with them. And Greg Sestero meets this woman at a bar, and they kind of hit it off and form a relationship. And Tommy Wiseau's not really happy about it because he wants to have full control over Greg Sestero and his life and everything. And Greg Sestero wants to be a little bit more independent and not live with Tommy Wiseau anymore, even though he offered him kind of stay at his place and stuff while he was in LA. And it's actually a pretty decent apartment, especially for what, how expensive it is to live out in Los Angeles and everything. They eventually, start having fights and stuff like that, and kind of affects their working relationship even on the screen and everything. One day his girlfriend offers him a role through a TV series, pretty much because of Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston kind of shows up. He sees that, Greg Sestero is interested in the film business and he wants to be in TV movies, offers him the part because he needs like a guy with a mustache and everything. And Greg Sestero at the time has a mustache, and he's like, you'd be perfect for the part of the lumberjack. And Greg Sestero goes to Tommy Wiseau during the filming of The Room, and Tommy Wiseau is not happy about this at all. He's like, why would you want to abandon our film that we're kind of working on to go work on a TV show, which should only be like a couple days shoot? And he's like, asking him to kind of push it back a couple of days so that he can be in this film, which is kind of a bullshit move, because why wouldn't you help out your friend, especially if he's got a really good role, especially in a TV show like that? And Tommy Wiseau's, no, we're in this together, that we're doing this together, so you kind of have to be here and be on our set and everything. And unless he's like sick or whatnot, then, he's not going to move it back. And so, Greg Sestero's not too happy about this. He's like, Tommy Wiseau pretty much fucked me over as well as my life, because I'm working on this crappy movie and I know it's kind of not going to lead me anywhere, but eventually it does. And so they have a couple squabbles back and forth. The director doesn't understand where the direction they're going with this script, and a lot of the crew members kind of gang up on Tommy Wiseau and are fighting against him and everything. There's also a heartbreaking scene where before they're filming The Room, you see Tommy Wiseau, he's beaten and bruised because one of these film executives that he meets at a bar, which tells him that he's not going to make it, that even if he has sort of talent, that's really, really hard to make it in Hollywood, which it definitely is. But, he said that even if he's really good, that he'll definitely not make it. And this kind of beatens down Tommy Wiseau as well as Greg Sestero, who's also kind of looking for some acting gigs. And, they're kind of like trying to make it happen, and they realize that it's really difficult, that this is not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And he's like, nobody wants me, Greg, and everything. And he's kind of heartbroken and distraught. And that's when they get the idea to make this movie. So eventually they make this movie and they have the premiere. Everybody's there, especially, Zac Efron, who shows up in this movie for a little bit. He plays one of the main characters who's kind of like a gang member and drug dealer and stuff like that. And, everybody's laughing at this movie. They're, making fun of it. it, even though Tommy Wiseau takes this movie really seriously. At one point in time, you see him sort of like break down into tears and stuff, storm out, and that's when you get sort of Dave Franco's really great speech about, they all showed up for this movie, they're having a good time, this is actually a good thing, and they kind of turn it around at the end and everything, and then you sort of see that there's good that comes out of this, like the modern day take on Tommy Wiseau and who he is and everything. You kind of see that this movie did actually end up making a success, as most of these biopics do. This is really good biopic, especially for a filmmaker who's interested in films and practical, especially ones that, don't always end up right. Nobody sets out to make sort of a bad movie, it just sort of happens that way. And Tommy Wiseau definitely wanted to make this a really interesting, really good movie. There's still really a lot of great one-liners, even in The Room and everything, and I think that this movie will stand the test of times as sort of a reminder that even bad movies can become good if you watch them the right way. And this movie definitely did help out Tommy Wiseau in a way, just because, PewDiePie eventually gave him a shout out, kind of breaking down his movie and everything. And I was even there watching that. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, and got interested, especially for me, someone who's never heard of The Room. So one of my friends in the movie theater, he kind of recommended it to me, and I eventually watched it after I saw The Disaster Artist. And I really do think that movie is great, especially the one-liners, hi doggy, and how's your sex life, and all these like really quotable things they can kind of quote any sort of given moment. And yes, the movie's kind of cringe-worthy. Yes, the movie's kind of corny in a way, but it's done in sort of a heartfelt manner. And I think that the fact that Tommy Wiseau funded this movie on his own and kind of built sort of a film studio and stuff like that with his own money is something that's really, really cool, and it kind of just shows you that if you're a filmmaker, you can actually do this, especially on low budget, which is kind of an easy sort of way to make a movie nowadays, that it can be done. And I think that this movie was definitely inspirational, especially to me as a filmmaker, and that's why I went out kind of liking this movie a lot. I eventually bought it on Blu-ray, which I still have the Blu-ray for that, and I watch it from time to time. It's a really cool, fun movie to watch, especially when I'm down and kind of worried about my own screenplays, worried about my own situation in the film industry. I just kind of watch that, and it takes my mind away from everything. It's really funny. It's got some serious moments into it. There's a lot of funny moments, especially when James Franco is coming out of that staircase and he's constantly like screwing up his lines and everything. That scene was just so freaking funny and everything. He's like, I hit her, and then all this bullcrap, like, do you want to change the line or whatnot? And eventually Greg Sestero goes up to Tommy Wiseau and hands him a water bottle, and that's where you get that awesome water bottle throw-in moment in The Room and everything. And just seeing the behind the scenes stuff and how everything kind of went wrong for these two, and they're kind of squabbling back and forth, kind of inspired me to kind of want to eventually make my own movies in the future, which I definitely will try to do at some point. But that is why I'm going to give James Franco's The Disaster Artist an A. I definitely think this movie deserves the A+ rating. Score is great. Some of the music in this is fantastic. They use music from the 80s and 90s and some rock and roll music here and there. The acting is great by all the actors and everything. There's a lot of really good one-liners, which I think in myself, like, the mark of a great movie is, one that you can kind of quote even after the movie's finished and that you're constantly think about, as I stated before in my previous videos. So I really do think that you guys check out this movie, either buy it on Blu-ray or check it out on some streaming service or iTunes or wherever you can find it, and definitely look at this one, because you're definitely going to enjoy this movie, and I highly recommend it to people that are interested in the film business, because this will inspire you to kind of do your own films as well. So as always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.